do what happens if Shane's not available, and we really don't like skipping shows per se. You know what I mean?
Too much to talk about right now.
So I think that I said to myself, well, I can always self-educate. It's not difficult. You know what I mean? To start a Google. I mean, anybody could do a Google Hangout on air. I mean, it's the other stuff that Shane does that I don't know how to do, and that's the editing and the sound effects and all that stuff.
Okay. And thank you, Mike, again for the edits.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, Mike, you've been killing it with that, man. I really appreciate that.
Does it weigh you down a little bit, Mike?
No, I mean, shit. In school, I was the English major in the room when I was living with all the guys, and they'd pay me to write their papers, basically. So, not a big deal.
All right. Well, Hawaiian Punch, not a good idea. These last 2 days, I have not been eating well.
Hawaiian Punch is always a good idea. Always.
Oh, man. And let me tell you, don't eat that damn hot dog.
Dude, why would you do that?
You have to have one more before the building goes.
Yeah.
For old times.
Chat, showcase. Hold on. All right, there's that. View more apps, Hangout Toolbox, Draw. Oh, it's not what I want. It's fine over there. There's all that up there. Links, live, that's good. Yeah, this isn't too hard to figure out. Google Showcase, that's where you can share links, okay. I thought they had... I actually thought they had this two boxes. Meme face, soundboard. Oh, soundboard. Oh, what is that?
I don't think it means what you think.
I'm going to check it out right now. Hold on 1 second.
You got 3 minutes, sucker.
I know how much freaking time I have.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and my two game losing streak. Yeah, we need to.
You are the worst.
That was fucking.
Yeah, that was pretty cold-blooded, Andy.
I'm sorry.
That's happening. I'm totally gonna get you for that. Don't worry.
Don't worry. I think we all had pretty terrible records last year, but not really our fault.
No, I think Mikey. I think you actually did better than the two of us.
Yeah, luck of the draw, I guess.
Yeah, it says sound effects, but I don't see any sound effects in here.
Yeah, I want you to give me like a deeper voice or something.
No, I was looking to see if there was maybe something that I can jazz this up a little bit, but I don't see anything. I'm in the Hangouts toolbox, but it doesn't really.
Did you guys get the possible topics for discussion tonight on that email I sent you?
I did.
See any you guys see any really funny tweets last night? Like people like, the season's over kind of tweets?
Oh, no, really? I missed that, thankfully.
No, I've seen a bunch of them, and I'm putting them together in a little blog post on Tumblr because I have too much free time, and I was wondering if you guys saw any funny ones. I'm just kind of searching through right now.
I'll send you some if you want some.
I mean, it's up to you. I was only going to put like 4 or 5 in. It might be a thing I do this season. I don't know. Depends on how they do.
Yeah.
On Tumblr?
Yeah. So I forgot I created one for school because we had to do some projects and stuff, and then I just started. I mean, it's just like quick hitters, and I don't know if I want to put it on the site to be like, look at all these asshole fans who are so off about the team. Like, I don't think that's something I want to put up there, but I think on the side it would be kind of funny.
It's like outing them or something.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to get mad, they can get mad at me. I don't want them to get mad at the site.
Oh, I understand what you're talking. Yeah, I understand what
you're talking. So I'm not like going off on my own, doing my own thing. I just don't want to put that on the site. I want to call them out, but just not under the umbrella of Isles Insight.
I haven't gotten into a fight in a very long time, so I'm okay with it. Let's go.
If you guys see any, just send them my way. And you know how Reagan does his tweets of the week, or we used to. I would do something like that off to the side, which is just like assholes.
Once.
It is now 8:05.
No, it's not. It's 8:01. Your clock.
But I got 8:02.
Okay, 8:02. Okay.
I'm waiting for some stragglers to come in. Hold on.
8:01. You're right. 8:01. Let's cue up some YouTube sound effects so that we can interject properly tonight. I have one in mind.
What, you'll get nothing and like it?
Exactly.
That's the stuff. See, that's really the only thing that Shane's professionalism, obviously, and the way he was able to run a show and stuff like that, and dictate time and stuff like that is missed. But the expertise in terms of the sound effects and stuff like that's really what I need to self-teach myself. No, so then in instances like this, we can still have what we deem anyway to be a complete live show. You know what I mean? Even though, like, I know the show's going to be edited, and when it comes out tomorrow, it's going to be like normal. But so we can have a complete live show. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Turn my camera off because I have a face for a radio. That comes through decent, a little low, but.
No, I know because it's on my speaker, but I'll put the mic closer to the. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Oh, you already did this? Oh, let me do this over here. Retweet.
What?
Wait, you sent it out?
Yeah, I sent it. Mikey, are you? How often are you working the
Twitter?
The Twitter.
Very often.
Mostly during games. Maybe
Twitter's
in the morning,
awesome.
like afterwards. But
we started the season. We had about a little under 800 followers. We now have 1,803.
Yeah, dude, we're moving. That's awesome.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but are we live? No, we're not. Okay.
Well, we are live, yeah, but
we are. Oh, never mind then. Okay.
Yeah, why don't we hold on to that one?
Yeah, let's just.
Well, I mean, you could say it and see. We really find out who's listening.
No.
I don't know, man.
Okay, so let me just make sure that everything's working here. In a general.
You hear me okay, right? I'm not too quiet, not too loud.
Do you have your
sound
mic?
Perfect.
All right.
You sound good.
Good.
How do I sound?
I'm gonna hold on.
It can get a little weird tonight. It's gonna get a little freaky.
It's gonna get a little freaky deaky, a little freakalicious.
Well, too late for
All right.
that.
Do we have points of references tonight? Where is that email I sent you guys? Shit.
Don't worry about it. We'll wing it, man. We're professionals.
I want to go on a Mike Francesca kind of rant.
Oh God.
On these fans.
Rants.
Rants? What happened to the 2 minutes for unsportsmanlike whatever?
2 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct, or whatever it was.
Yeah, we used to have that.
That was fun.
I'm sure we'll work. It's a long season. It's only October 29th. I'm sure we'll work some of that stuff in.
My God, it's already October 29th. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Next year, I've decided I'm not even taking my Christmas decorations. I'm going to be one of those guys that I make fun of in July. I'm not going to light them, but I'm definitely going to just keep them up.
Look at that Look at that. Oh, damn. I almost tripped while sitting down.
Which is virtually impossible to do.
Oh my God! I did. That you might about the basketball season. That's funny.
What the heck was that?
What?
Did you hear that reverberation?
This is a crazy NBA opening night. Just crazy. So insane.
Oh yeah, that was me. No, that was me. After the loss, when the tweets started coming in, like, "Oh, we suck. This season's over. It's terrible. I hate myself." I was like, "Yeah, it's crazy NBA over here."
The puppy one that needs to be a thing every so often.
Yeah, I come across those pictures every so often, and I think it might help. It might help make the losses a little more bearable. Is basically what I'm going for.
That, and you want to watch the Islanders, y'all?
Yeah, that's a thing that lets people know that I'm paying attention to it rather than just ignoring it all day.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get going. We got a couple of viewers in here. Welcome. I'm sorry about the lack of introduction. The introduction will be piped into the recorded version that Shane gets a chance to. I think Rich just fell on the floor.
No, that wasn't me.
The intro and all your normal sound effects will be pumped in by Shane when he edits this. Unfortunately, Shane is not available tonight. Welcome to the Dump and Chase podcast for this Wednesday, October 29th, 2014. I am Andy Graziano at Tasman19. Joining me are Rich Diaz Rodriguez at RDNHL and Michael Wilhoft. I can just throw an @ before that, and you can, the rest is his Twitter handle, as we have rehashed numerous times. Welcome. We've got some interesting Islanders talk for you this week. A lot going on with the team. We're 6-3, heading into what can only be described as a scary 5-game road trip. Next home game isn't until November the 11th against the Avalanche. So let's basically just quickly recap. I don't think we have to go game by game, but let's kind of recap what we saw the last week. Rich, what are your impressions of the last week of Islanders hockey?
Well, starting with yesterday's loss, I see an Islander team that is unsurprisingly imbalanced. I also see a lot of positive takes. I am not as worried about this road trip as I would have been last season. I mean, I have been somewhat critical on Twitter with regards to Halak's inconsistencies. Some of the soft goals are coming at the worst of times, but I do believe, as Reagan, our own Reagan King, has pointed out, and what I mentioned earlier in my post, is that even the great ones, Lundqvist, Rask, these guys start slow, and the mark of greatness is how you come back from that. I see an Islander team that can score, but it's forgetting to come back on the play. And paramount example is what Oposo did yesterday on that turnover. His head wasn't in the game, in that particular moment anyway, and it cost the Islanders the game. But I see a team that can do some damage. I really do.
Mike, thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Rich. I think for all the yelling and screaming we've heard about how this team has let its fans down, it's not playing up to potential, I think they've been in every game. And, the 2 wins early against Carolina. Carolina's a pretty bad team, but those are still wins, and there's still points in the standings. So for them to be 6-3 and not having played their best hockey yet, I think is a very encouraging sign. I mean, Andy, I think you wrote it in your post. I think it was a post game earlier in the week, maybe last week. If we think of those points that they're earning now, like money in the bank, and they can withdraw by maybe losing a couple games down the line, I mean, they're still over 500. They're not in the basement. They're leading the division, so I don't see the need to burn the season just yet. I mean, let's give them 20 games at least before we start making, hard and fast assumptions about what this team is and what they will be.
Yeah, I think last night's game was a rough game. It's a classic trap game. We use that term loosely sometimes, but I think last night was a probably the most accurate description of a trap game. The team coming in 6-2, they kind of quelled a lot of fears by quickly breaking their 2-game losing streak. And I'm not going to say they laid an egg per se. I mean, I think that the effort was most certainly there. But when you have your top players, and I'm going to call out for the second game in a row, I called them out on Twitter pretty ferociously on Saturday night at the Coliseum versus Dallas. John Tavares has just not looked like John Tavares the last, I'm going to say, 3 to 4 games. I guess he's not immune to gripping the stick a little tight. He's not letting the game come to him. He's trying to force too much. Kyle Okposo last night maybe had the worst game I've seen him have since he has scored 4 goals in 48 games in the lockout-shortened season.
Yeah.
That turnover at the blue line with 3 stars surrounding him was just absolutely brutal and something you would expect a rookie to make, not a veteran. And then to compound it, not getting back on defense and allowing Andrew Ladd the tap-in goal when Halak, I think rightfully, went to kick that puck into the corner. I mean, you see that a lot, right? Goalies make the leg save, and they purposely go to redirect that puck away from the slot area and into the corner. That's what Halak did. You just didn't expect Andrew Ladd to be right on his doorstep with nobody covering him. And, I think that it was just a tough loss all around heading into such a dangerous road trip against some really, really good Western Conference teams. I think last night's win would have put them at 7-2. Points in the bank is definitely a valid statement. I still think this team needs to pick up minimum. I think they got to go 50% on this trip, in my opinion. They got to get at least 5 to 10 points on this trip. They can't afford a 1-2 point trip.
You have to believe that they're going to give San Jose some more trouble, and San Jose is not doing all that great at home. But if you start off this road trip by losing to the worst team in the West, or one of the worst teams in the West right now.
Well, a struggling team. I wouldn't call them the worst team. They're a struggling team.
Yeah, a struggling team.
Record-wise, right.
Yeah, record-wise. They're not a bad team. Right. But it's just that right now they're in trouble, and the Islanders need to put their foot on their neck and keep it there for a full 60. You know, Andy, I wanted to ask you both, actually, this question. I feel as if, you know, this is the first time in the last, let's say, 36 months of watching this team closely that I have felt as if the first line is the first line really has it's very ambiguous, very kind of in the air. It's nebulous at best. I
know where this is going.
So yeah, so I'm thinking. So I actually feel it's time to put somebody up there that has a completely different philosophy when it comes to playing the game as a forward, and that's Nikolai Kulemin. And I think that Kulemin, unlike Brock Nelson, gives you a little bit more experience, a lot more on the back check, and he'll just change just by looking at him. If you're a Posto and Tavares, you're going to see that you have to change the way you think about what you're doing when you're in your own zone. I've watched this man play very closely, and I see nothing wrong in what he's doing. He's pretty much playing as great a hockey as I can think of anyone playing right now that isn't really Tavares, except for the last 2 games. I think he's playing a hell of a season right now. He's my favorite Islander and one of the strongest players on this team.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he would be a good fit there now, especially because Bailey's out. If Bailey were in, I would be very hesitant to break up a Kulemin, Bailey, Nielsen line. But because Bailey's out and the lines are kind of in flux, we saw Capuano juggling lines pretty heavily last night. A, due to Bailey's absence. B, his team was down, and C, because Kulemin was out. But still, I think Kulemin brings a lot to that first line. Like you said, Rich, the back checking. He is one of the best back checkers, if not the best back checker on the team, aside from Nielsen probably. He finishes all his checks. He will open space for Opozo and Tavares. I think on paper that's a very good move to put him up front. I mean, will Capuano do it? I kind of think he will, just because he's shown a lot of kind of a tendency to juggle lines and put different people in different spots so far this year, at least more than I've seen in years past.
You know, I think that there's a natural overreaction when you lose a game like you did last night. I totally get that from the fans on social media. I could see where they're coming from, because let's be honest here. Before we got into this venture, we were all fans as well, and I think that we still are fans per se, but we've been forced to become more objective because of our writing. And I'm going to address this for the final time, not because of what the Islanders tell us. The Islanders don't tell us what to write and what not to write. We don't have a mandate, even though we are part of the Islanders' credentialed media. All we're told to do is be fair. That's it. And that's what we strive to do. But I totally get the fans' frustration after a loss. But I think when everything settles in, you have to realize that, you know, there are only 4 teams in the entire National Hockey League right now that have more points than the New York Islanders. Montreal Canadiens, the Anaheim Ducks, the Los Angeles Kings, and the San Jose Sharks. Unfortunately, we play 3 of those 4 teams coming up.
Thank you, Andy.
Those are the only 4 teams in the entire league that have more points than the New York Islanders right now. The problem that I see, we're also, by the way, the leading scoring team in the entire Eastern Conference. In fact, let me just check this real quick. We are tied for the league lead in goals with 35. That other distinction is the San Jose Sharks, who we play on the road. It's the defense that's killing me, guys. It really is. I mean, 35 goals for, 31 goals against. I know it's early, and Richie made a great point. If you look at Yaroslav Halak's career trend line, month to month, his save percentage rises dramatically. He gets stronger as the season goes on. But that has to stop. That has to stop. The penalty kill, which is now playing what I call a passive box, has to go back to playing that aggressive style that we saw them play last year when it was working. They need to attack the puck. That's when they're at their most successful. And I think that Grabner's absence is hurting that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No speed on it.
But that passive box is just awful. It's not working, and I don't know why 9 games in they're still using the passive box. So I think that defensively, man, the forwards have to be responsible and come back, which we haven't seen the last couple of games. Let's face it, if Halak doesn't get better, which I believe he will, but if he doesn't, and that defense doesn't shore up, all the goals in the world aren't going to be enough to cover up for those deficiencies. We know that for a fact. As far as the first line goes, look, I tweeted it last night after Okposo. We'll, again, we don't need to rehash what he did. He knows what he did. We all saw what he did. After he did that, I'll call it, I tweeted immediately after that, and that was clearly on Corey Conacher. Clearly. It was clearly Corey Conacher's fault. The turnover at the blue line, the lack of back-checking was all on Corey Conacher. I think the guy gets a bad rap. I think he's doing exactly what he needs to do for that line. He's always first in the O zone. He's always first back in the D zone. We've seen him take the body more than Okposo and Tavares combined. Last night, a fantastic play in the first period in the offensive zone for his size to lay a hit on a much bigger defenseman to free up the puck for a scoring chance. Those are the little things, which is why Jack Capuano wanted him last year. And he may not be the perfect fit on that line. I see your point with Nikolai Kulemin, but I don't think he deserves a lot of the flack he's been getting either.
That's true, Andy, and I agree because he is one of the most hardworking players we have on this team. And he's incredibly talented, gifted skater. He's got a good nose for the net, even though he's a smaller player. He is very aggressive. However, if Corey Conacher, now you may disagree, guys, but if Corey Conacher stays on that line and the type of scrutiny that he's now receiving, and if this line still struggles, as I think it will if it stays together, Corey Conacher is going to see himself out of an Islanders uniform, for not because he's a terrible player, but because of the way in which the dynamic is rolling out in his team, because of the people coming back, because we can say that we have depth now. So, okay, so where do you put if Bailey comes back and Grabner comes back and Corey Conacher is struggling, where do you put him? And if Lee is doing his job, where do you put him? So right. I mean, it's good for the fan. It is not a good situation for Corey Conacher. It really isn't.
Mike?
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said there, Rich. And how do I put this? I don't think, even if Conacher were to stay on the first line, I don't think that line's going to struggle. It's John Tavares, MVP candidate, Kyle Pozo, breakout year last year. He's going to come back. We're only, 9 games in? I don't think they're going to struggle no matter. I mean, they had Brad Boyes on the line, a few years ago. They did all right then. They made him look like a superstar. Obviously, when Vanek was there, the line was lights out, top scoring line in the league. But I don't think the presence of Corey Conacher there is necessarily a bad thing the way people want to paint it as online. I don't think he's the reason that Tavares isn't scoring or that Okposo is turning the puck over at the blue line. I think that's on each individual player, and I think they know it better than any of us that they need to turn it around, and they will. They'll get back to their career averages. It's kind of the same argument I look at with the goaltending, and I know we're not going to talk about the goaltending, but we're going to talk about the goaltending. They're going to play to their career averages. They are slow starters, goalies as a position, the goaltender tends to start a little slowly. And if you look at their hockey card, their averages indicate that they will bounce back. They're not going to be sub-900 goaltenders the entire year. So I think the same thing about Conacher. He's not the reason that the first line isn't producing, but I do agree, Rich, that if he doesn't play up to his potential, I don't see any scenario where Capuano would keep him there just to keep him there.
Yeah.
Now, George, I see your comment. I know you're listening, so we're going to address that right now. Let's talk about the coaching. I have legitimately been a fan of Jack Capuano's. I still am a fan of Jack Capuano personally. I've been a supporter of him as head coach of this team. As I've said before, I think every coach in the history of the National Hockey League has what's called a shelf life. Just like something you would buy at your local food store, if we want to use that analogy. I'm just not sure if Jack's expiration date has come due. What I mean by that is, look, you can criticize him. I see a lot of the criticism on him, and I don't agree with it because I don't feel it's for the right reasons. So let's talk about what in my opinion, are the right reasons for criticizing Jack Capuano. Mm-hmm. There's no need to put that fourth line out after you score a goal. When you score a goal, that's when you're at your top momentum push. That's when you're at the pinnacle. The crowds, especially at home, the crowd's amped. The team naturally is amped and has all that adrenaline going from scoring. You put that fourth line out there, you're basically just diffusing all of that. You're eliminating all of that right off the bat. I think he needs to develop more of a killer instinct in terms of how he uses his forwards. There's no reason for the fourth line to be out there with 2 minutes left trailing by a goal. There's no reason for Brian Straight to be on the penalty kill. Mm-hmm. These things are not so much opinions and observations. They're almost, you really can't say they're factual, but I mean, they almost are, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of ice time, Otters Lee in 3 games, 11 minutes, 34 seconds, third lowest on the team. I get you want to bring the guy along slowly, but he's proven he could play. Less than 30 NHL games, 10 NHL goals. The guy's a beast in front of the net. And, this is not 5-on-5 ice time. I know it's adjusted for penalty kill and power play minutes, but third lowest on the team with 11 minutes and 34 seconds. The only one lower is Matt Martin at 11:10 and Colin McDonald, who is now in Bridgeport, who was at 10:38 through 2 games. Mm-hmm. You got Brian Straight out there for 18 minutes. You have Thomas Hickey out there for 19 minutes, who has not had the start coming off the season that he had last year. Those are the criticism that I have right now of Jack Capuano.
Yesterday, he actually did listen to you. After the Islanders scored, I believe, the tying goal, he put Franz Nielsen's line on the ice. But, yeah, I've never understood that myself. I think that the most dangerous, and this is when coaching soccer, playing soccer and playing hockey, I used to remember my coaches saying, the most dangerous part of a game is the first 5 minutes. It's the 5 minutes after a goal is scored.
Right.
And it's because the team is still shocked, the opponent's still shocked and children, trying to get their bearings, what have you. I agree. You just keep going and try to get another 2 in there and whatever. Just keep that pressure going. My issue with Jack Capuano, I don't have one right now. I don't see Capuano saying. I don't hear Capuano saying the normal trigger words that I've seen him. I've heard him say in the past. He, for me, addressed the media quite well yesterday in saying that it's not battle level, it's puck management. It's simple fundamental hockey that's just not being like realized by these players, especially our top line. And that top line is erratic at best these last few games. So there's nothing to blame Capuano for, and I think he's given the goalies a nice competitive feel to their year. I think that it's healthy. That Halak is looking over both shoulders, saying, "Well, Chad Johnson's 3-0, and I'm I lost the last 3. I need to, step up my game. I'm going to the West now. This is something I'm familiar with." So I don't see anything wrong with what Capuano's doing. I really don't understand what people are talking about. Mike.
I think people are always going to want to yell at Capuano just because they have it in their heads that because his first few years weren't the best, and he didn't have the best team in front of him, so it's not all on him. Mm-hmm. Because he wasn't the best, because he didn't win Stanley Cup upon Stanley Cup, he is, quote-unquote, not an NHL coach. And I don't buy that. I think people look and they see someone on TV behind the bench and they say, oh, he looks like an NHL coach, Babcock or, whoever. They're like, that guy's an NHL coach. He's good. We should get him. Yeah, Bilesma, anybody like that. Yep. And they see Capuano and they just have it in their head that he doesn't know what he's doing. But, I mean, being able to see him in practice and at training camp and, even after games, you can tell that he has the trust of the players in the room. And they really feel that it's upon them to prove him right, that he's a good coach. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's because of Capuano that this team is being held back. I do take issue with, like we've talked about, the fourth line being put out there at the end of games trying to protect a lead or right after a goal, and it kind of kills the momentum a little bit. And I think, I kind of speculating here, but maybe it's because he sees the way they play, and they're always playing hard, and they always hit everybody, and they go get pucks. And he wants that to be the message his team follows. He says, this is the way we're going to play, and these guys do it, so I'm going to reward them by giving them minutes. Whether that's best for the team in the long run, that's probably up for debate. But I think if he can get away from that, and Martin didn't play that much down the stretch last night, so maybe he is. I think if he can get away from relying on his fourth line to kind of be the pace setter, then I think he'll get a lot more respect from the fans who don't see him at practice and really don't trust him as a coach.
You know, here's the thing. I'm going to probably do this analysis in the next couple of days. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, but I'd be curious to see what other teams around the league's fourth line is averaging in terms of ice time. I'm going to say, without looking at any numbers, that I shouldn't say normal, another team's fourth line in the National Hockey League probably gets in the range of 8 to 10 minutes per night. And I think that's where I have a problem with his usage of that line. I don't feel that line should be in the 12 to 13, sometimes even 14-minute range we've seen. I think there's one thing to roll 4 lines. There's another thing when your fourth line, who, yes, is physical and, yes, does forecheck, and in some games this year has been really, really good. But, you know, if you believe in advanced stats, and I do to a certain degree, they are horrendous in puck possession stats. And if you're talking about possessing the puck, managing the puck, the catchphrase this year instead of battle level is puck management. That's not the line to do it. If the stats don't bear it out. And I think it would behoove everybody to maybe cut 2 minutes a game off that fourth line usage. It will give the skill players more time on the ice. John Tavares has to stop extending his shifts. It's ridiculous how long he's out there. It truly is. Going as hard as they go, it's absolutely ridiculous for John to be out there a minute 25, a minute 30, which I've seen numerous times in the last 2 games.
Last night he was out for
ridiculous.
And you don't need that anymore. You have Grabovski now. You have a guy who's a natural goal scorer. Look at that beautiful goal he scored, man.
Depth. You don't.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with Capuano. He's holding the clipboard too tight.
I don't think John has adjusted to the talent around him yet. I don't think he realizes the depth that he has around him.
And that's the thing.
You know, I don't know if Cappy's the reason per se. I asked Cappy Saturday at the morning skate. I literally looked him in the eyes and said, "What do you feel the problem is on the penalty kill? Is it systems and structure, or is it execution?" And he said to me that he truly believes that it's execution.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what I expected him to say, because if he would have said systems, it would have been...
I screwed up.
The finger back at him, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but, look, as far as quotes go, that's what he told me.
Well, let's move on to something that I started talking to you guys about. We broached it, and that's, how do we rate our goaltenders through the month of October? I mean, tomorrow being the last game of this month.
Yep.
What grade would you give our goaltending?
Ooh.
Mikey, what's the rubric, man?
Letter grade, C. They've been average. I mean, we've seen the team score more than enough goals to win games. You know, it's not like where they gave up 3 and they would automatically lose. You know, a few years ago, 3 goals was a death knell. Tavares doesn't score, it's a death knell. Now, if Halak or Johnson gives up 3 goals, you know, the Islanders can still put up 5, 6, 7, no problem. They have the offense. If I had to rate one against the other, I think I'd give the edge to Johnson as far as being a little calmer in net. He hasn't given up as many soft ones. He tends to control the rebounds or cover up a little better than Halak. But like I said before, Halak's a slow starter, as are goalies in general. And I think, you know, for people to be saying, oh, Halak's the number 1, he's our number 1, can you believe this? I mean, 3 months ago he was being hailed as a savior just for signing here. And I think he's going to bounce back. So I think it's very early. If I had to give him a grade, I'd say a C as a tandem overall.
Andy, what about you?
I'm going to go with an incomplete, because I don't feel that it's necessarily fair to rate the goaltenders after 9 games, because of the fact that statistical trends show, like we've discussed over and over, that Halak's a slow starter, and he takes some time to kind of warm up to his style. And you know, Chad Johnson is undefeated, but let's face it, he's undefeated because of the Islanders scoring. You know, he's had a 3.01 and an 891 in 4 games. You know, he's undefeated primarily because the Islanders have scored a ton of goals, with the exception of the 4-3 win in the home opener. And I mean, I guess 4 goals is a lot, but So I'm really going to go an incomplete there. They haven't blown my socks off, but I'm also not ready to use the bust label on either of them 9 games in. I don't think that's fair at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fair enough, but I do find it. I was going to ask Cap Bonner this question, but it was somewhat asked by someone else, which is, what do you Is there a cause for concern that the Islanders can't keep their opponents from scoring 3 goals or less?
He would have answered you very testily.
He would have.
Because Saturday night after the 7-5 win over Dallas, Steven Lorenzo of the New York Daily News asked him that question. I was standing right next to Steven. I thought I was on fire. The look that Jack shot him, I thought I was on fire. And Jack said, I'll take the W's. And then as somebody was getting ready to ask a new question, Jack actually interrupted that person
to answer that question
to Steven again and say, no, of course I'm not happy with giving up that many goals. Why would you think I would be? Those certain terms.
But I wasn't asking him if he was going to be happy. I said, are you concerned? He's going to be like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly how he answered Steve. Yeah.
But I just think that, in all fairness, to take your points even further, guys, and to leave it at that, is I would be happy if the Islanders continue scoring, but I think not. But it's funny because I think by December, I saw this month, offense was working, defense, goaltending not. So November, defense, goaltending will work, offense won't. So by December, we'll be a solid, balanced team, so all will be well. That's how I look at it.
Mike, you're going to take this question from Frank Kamugla, who asks us a question on the Q&A section. He goes, I think the Islanders are one veteran trade away from being a serious playoff threat. What do you think?
I think they're a playoff threat already. I don't think they need to make a trade anymore. Garth already swung his 2 trades. He got 2 very good Stanley Cup winning defensemen. I think we're getting a little greedy here. It's oh man, what if they made another trade? And what if they made another trade? And what if we forced all trades on and we were playing EA? Then we would have a super team. I understand that. I think they're a playoff team now, and I think they're a threat to win around now. I think they just have to put it all together. It's a lot of, like you said, Andy, Tavares isn't used to the talent around him. I don't think they're used to, a lot of them aren't used to being on a team this good.
Right.
The ceiling hasn't been reached yet. They haven't played their best, and they're still in first place. They're still winning. I don't think the need to make a trade right now is anywhere near the realm of possibility. I think maybe at the deadline, if they're really pushing and they think they can, maybe push for a series or 2 win in the playoffs, then maybe. But I really don't think adding another player to the mix is going to do it. I mean, if everybody plays to their capability, I think this is a playoff team, no question.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
there's something to be said for chemistry, right? And I think that the Islanders right now are clearly looking to develop that chemistry. Now, luckily, we saw almost instant chemistry with Nick Leddy and Johnny Boychuk as a defensive pair. Thank God for that. But you could still see the forward lines, especially with the injuries we've suffered early on, that they're still struggling to develop chemistry, not only with being on a new club, but being and skating with each other. There's a lot to be said for that. There's not many people, if any, are Wayne Gretzky and can feel the game at that level where, you could play with him 3 games in and he knows where you're going to be automatically. There's nobody that'll ever be like that again. So there's a lot to be said, I think, for chemistry, and I think the Islanders, especially at forward with the injuries, are still trying to develop that. And I think a trade would actually be very counterproductive to that exercise. I think to throw another new guy into the mix at this juncture, obviously depending on who it is, might be more damaging. And you know what? To be honest with you, there's nobody of that kind of quality that's available right now that I've heard, anyway, that would be worthwhile. I do think there's a trade there because I still think we're a little, obviously, very deep at the defense position. So I still think there's something there. Someone's going to have to get risked through waivers sooner or later, guys. It's that simple. And I'll tell you this, from talking to my sources, the injury that Matt Carkner has, which I originally thought was a IR injury, let me call it, or you know what I mean, one of those injuries you just make up to create a roster space. I'm actually told that Carkner is really hurt, and it's a nerve issue in his back, similar to what Brian Straight went through last year, and they really don't know what it is or when it's going to settle down. I think when that happens, I don't think there's any doubt that he gets the Joe Finley treatment and gets sent to Bridgeport. I don't think he gets claimed. But it still leaves either Brian Straight or Matt Donovan that's going to have to at some point go through waivers when everybody's healthy.
And if the Islanders do lose Matt Donovan to waivers, I am going to write a scathing article on his website because
Matt
there's
Donovan gets claimed. If he tries to get pushed through waivers, I think the Islanders have devalued him a little bit by scratching him.
No, that's my point. He'll get claimed. There's no point. There's no reason or rhyme, if you will, for this young man to be claimed by anyone other than the New York Islanders.
Well, they have devalued him. Like I said, the scratches have devalued him. There's no
last night and nothing.
So, look, I'm not gonna say I still think he's a part of this team right now. I don't think that he's the one. I honestly think from what we've seen that Brian Straight is the one that has to get exposed to waivers.
Mm-hmm.
He's just played horrible hockey through the first 9 games.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But to go back to the question asked, I think we shouldn't even think about trading trades or what have you until we see what kind of unity is formed here on this road trip. Tavares spoke yesterday quite eloquently about what a road trip this early in the season with a team that is on the uptick for the most part, even though they did lose a really bad game yesterday. I mean, he said something along the lines of, a group training camp in Long Island for such a long time in Long Island. Nice to get away from the home, get away from the noise, and bond. So let's see what 12 days away from Long Island will do for this team, and then we'll talk trade. Or if not, we'll just see what we have. The road is going to definitely test us, and for me, if Halak straightens out, which we know he will, the Islanders will be fine. It works out.
I think this is the critical stretch. I forget when we went over what are the biggest games on the schedule. We did that a few weeks ago. I forget when. But you look at this part of the schedule, and it's tough, man. I mean, the Western Conference as a whole is always tough. They're better than the East by leaps and bounds. And to go out there early in the season when the Islanders are maybe a little frustrated, they could have won every game that they've played, which is kind of ridiculous to say, but they've been in all the games. They haven't been blown out per se. The Toronto game, maybe they didn't play so well in the second period. So, but I mean, maybe that's a good thing. They go out there with a chip on their shoulder, and everyone's already saying, well, if they go 500 on this road trip, that's a win. That's the best thing that could possibly happen. Maybe they kind of coalesce and they, like you said, Rich, they bond on that road trip and they say nobody believes in us but the guys in this room. We're going to go out and we're going to take on, the 3 best teams in the league in California. We're going to beat the Avalanche. We're struggling. We're going to beat the Coyotes, who we should beat because we're better than them. Maybe something crazy happens and they end up going well above 500 on the trip. I'm not saying they will, but it's possible. And I think that this is a very critical part of the schedule. And Rich, like you said, this is where we're going to find out what they're made of. It's still early, but we're going to see a lot of if they can grow up kind of overnight.
Absolutely. I mean, the game tomorrow is the game in Colorado. That's the last game, as we've said, in October. We then head into November with 14 games on the schedule, 8 of which are 8 of which are on the road. So 8 of 14 games in November are on the road. We got San Jose, Anaheim, LA, Arizona, back home to play Colorado, then back out to Florida to play Florida and Tampa Bay, back home to play Tampa Bay, a home and home with Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, who always gives us trouble, a home and home with the Caps, and then
the game of games, man.
New Jersey trapping Devils. Haven't been doing much trapping this year. I saw a stat last night. The New Jersey Devils, I think 5 of their first 9 games have given up greater than 4 goals. That is absurd.
Yeah. The only team doing worse or close to it is Buffalo. You see that differential, negative, minus 22 or something like that.
Let me tell you something right now. The Buffalo Sabres, they're
tanking with no regard to public perception.
I think the Carolina Hurricanes bounce back. Once they get the stalls back, I think the Hurricanes with 2 points through 8 games, it's going to be a long road ahead for the Hurricanes, but I think they bounce back to at least semi-decency. The Buffalo Sabres in 10 games have scored 11 goals.
That's horrible. They did beat the Sharks, though. They did beat the Sharks in the Shark Tank.
The Florida Panthers in 7 games have scored 10 goals. I mean, that is just horrendous. And I was watching Steve Dangle's video before because Toronto beat Buffalo last night 4-0. And, he always comes out with the fantastic Toronto. I'm telling you, you don't have to be a Leaf fan to listen to this guy and watch his videos. They're fantastic, just for the entertainment value alone. And he was just slicing Buffalo up, and based on those numbers, rightfully so. I mean, minus 22 goal differential after 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's even crazy looking at these stats? So Minnesota has only given up 14 goals this season.
In
Yet
8
they're in
games,
freaking
right? And
fourth
five
place.
went to the Rangers.
Yeah, they're in fourth place in the Central Division.
Right.
So that goes to show you the West is a beast, is a monster, it's a Goliath.
Look at that Pacific Division. 4 points separate Anaheim and Calgary.
I mean, you guys saw the playoffs last year. I enjoyed every. I mean, I always love the playoffs, but
yeah.
the West Coast game, man, lights out.
Oh yeah.
It's just the best. And they beat up on each other all season, and it's even regular season games. Like if Dallas and St. Louis, I don't know if you guys saw the game. If Dallas and St. Louis play in the playoffs this year, that might be the best series we get all playoffs.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
It's just unbelievable hockey.
I think things are going to even themselves out. I think that it's natural for fans to go through what they're going through because they've craved a winner for so long with this team, and they've been through. The older fans like me have been through the run of the mill from from heaven to hell, and everywhere in between. Where the younger fans have just experienced hell. Let's face it, they haven't seen a team this good. So I think it's natural for them when the team has this much potential and has this much talent. I just don't want to see them. I just don't want to see their heads explode through the course of 82 games. I mean, there's still
right. You can't keep up this pace of the world is ending after every loss. I mean, the Bruins lost 17 games last year, and they were the President's Trophy winners. You think the Boston fans wanted to kill themselves after every loss?
Right.
I don't think so. I mean, let's have a little perspective here. Let's not. We're not entitled to a winner. This is the best team we've seen in a very long time, and it should be expected that they play well. I don't think they're going to win the cup, but let's keep it in perspective. It's a process.
And believe me, I'm not saying that to diminish their opinions. I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think everyone has the right to voice their opinion, and I think everyone has the right to feel however they want to feel. But I'm saying this strictly in dad mode for concern of their health over the final 73 games. That's strictly why I'm saying that. Mental health, because it's going to be a long road. It's going to be an up and down season, and who knows? This might be the year when you need 96, 97 points to make the playoffs in the East. You don't know how it's going to shape out. I always feel that the teams that start out hot, like the teams that come out of nowhere and start out hot, they're always going to regress, right? I mean, we've seen that. And the teams that start out really crappy, who are good hockey clubs, like the Boston Bruins at 5-6 right now, they're going to get better. Right? That's always seems to how the league works, right? I mean, but then out of nowhere, you have that one or two teams that just come out of nowhere and have that fantastic dream season. And why can't that be us? It could be.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I don't know, guys. I was thinking about this on the way home today on the train. I was thinking, what if the Islanders would have gone undefeated in October going into this this road trip?
They lost the first game. They played the Coliseum.
If you wouldn't have covered those 2 games that you were scheduled to
Shut up!
They might have been.
See, now you're overreacting.
Now you're putting the
They put the whammy on him.
You just put the freaking. Now I'm gonna be all freaking paranoid when I go to the Coliseum.
They could have had a 9-1 October if you wouldn't have went to those 2 games.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You know what? I'm not gonna say anything. It's all right.
Oh look.
Call me Mr. November. That's all I have to say.
Well, November should be interesting because the Cred schedule is pretty evened out, so it should make for some interesting statistical analysis once that's over. Frank has another question here. Let's address this. He goes, the one thing I've noticed that's been different from last year has been that the team has been winning the games that last year they lost.
Mm-hmm.
I think Butch mentioned it also. Do you guys see that difference between this and last year? We'll send this one to Rich first.
I think that Ranger game is the best answer to that question. That was a lost game. If Halak doesn't do that, standing on his head routine thing, mm-hmm. the Islanders are toast.
That thing that he does when he stands on his head and spins around?
Yeah, it's that thing he does every so often. He's not doing it lately, but when he does it, it's a beautiful thing. Right. But it is. I think I see a little bit more of that than I have last season. These are games the Islanders are supposed to lose. These games coming up, especially LA and Anaheim. So let's see.
Mike?
Yeah, I think they're definitely winning the games that they would have lost last year or the year before. I mean, the Rangers game definitely, the Bruins game, where they did everything they could to keep the puck out of the net the final 5 minutes. I felt like the Bees were in the zone. And they did it. I mean, they got that done. It wasn't pretty, but they got it done. And the Dallas game, back and forth, shootout, giving up leads. All of a sudden, here we go again. And it never really felt like it got away from them the way it would have last year. Like so many 2-goal leads blown. We all have flashbacks. It's like telling war stories. But I feel like they're much improved from that perspective. They would have lost these games last year.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think that to speak directly to Frank, I think that from the first game on the road in Carolina that we won 5-3, and then when I had the opportunity the next day to see everything up close as they came back to the Coliseum, I'm not going to go as far back as training camp because that's really a tough thing to estimate when the guys are just coming back from the summer and all, but especially after Boychuk and Leddy came in. And I've talked about this with Arthur Staple at the press box a couple of times already in this brief season, and it's just amazing that when they came in, you immediately not only saw, I mean, we could see it in the room, but you immediately felt it around the team, what they were bringing from Stanley Cup organizations. And that, to me, is priceless, more so even than the play on the ice. And Johnny Boychuk has been fantastic. Nick Leddy in transition is just a beautiful thing to watch.
Damn right.
I'm now convinced that he was so underutilized in Chicago, it's not even funny. And not to their fault. I mean, Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook are two pretty good guys to put ahead of them, and Nicholas Jarmelson too. But seeing what they brought in terms of attitude and experience that they're passing on to all these kids, and Leddy's only 23, he's a kid himself, but already won a Stanley Cup. That, to me, is what makes this team feel so different. I don't see, except for the last 2 games, prior to the last 2 games, if we're going to throw those out as an abomination and not, a trend, I don't see the panic in the defensive zone that I saw with previous teams.
No, there's only one player I can think of that truly looks like he's chasing and swimming a little bit, but they're, on the whole, I think the unit is very solid. And the Boston game stands out to me 100%.
And they're not even fully healthy yet.
That too. Have they had their full defense together yet? No.
Travis Hamonic skated today in a non-contact yellow jersey. He went on the trip. I'm assuming he's going to either play tomorrow or at worst Saturday. Josh Bailey also made the trip. Now, Capuano's comment on Bailey was, it's not as bad as we originally thought. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming by the fact that Josh made the trip, that might tell me that it's not even a break.
The post game said Kinger was saying, or his assistant, I forget his name, I'm sorry, said he's in a splint.
Oh, so it's not even a break then?
No, it's not a break.
It's probably just a bad bruise.
Well, who knows? But the word was splint. That's what I heard.
There you go. So it was
okay,
never
not
hard
cast.
Yeah.
Not hard casted, right?
Yeah,
so like I said, that's where I see the big difference in this team. I see it. I mean, when Johnny Boychuk came in before the first Carolina game, he even made this comment. He's like, look around this, he made this comment to a reporter. He goes, look around this room. Look at this team. We can win now. We should win now. And I think that's the kind of attitude that was missing from this team in past years that Boychuk and Leddy both bring in. And it's invaluable. It's just you can't even quantify a worth to it, in my opinion. That kind of experience.
I agree.
All right, so that'll do it for us on the Dump and Chase podcast. We thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. We hope we've entertained you without our master Shane Blackburn at the helm. I know I didn't do him any justice, but hey, I tried. E for effort, right? I feel like the Islanders from last night against Winnipeg. I gave it my all, but too many turnovers. Too many turnovers at the blue line.
Shall we give him a rundown of the schedule? I can do that. I have it open if you want me to.
I'm not doing the music.
Wow.
So you want, but I'm not doing the music. Rich Diaz Rodriguez at RDNHL. Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
No, just thank you so much for listening and reading. And I am 0-2 in the press box. Okay, I am 0-2. So whatever.
And that's O-N-2 spelt out because we spell out anything under 10. Mike Wilhoft at Michael Wilhoft. Anything you would like to plug?
IslandersInsight.com. We have a ton of new stuff out. If you guys haven't checked it out, please do so. A lot of good perspective. a lot of things from the post game, obviously, but a lot of good perspective overall. We're going to have a lot of new stuff coming out on a more regular schedule, so if you could keep us in mind, check it out. We appreciate the support.
And I am Andy Graziano at Tasman19 on the Twitter machine. I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to send a special thanks to my team, especially these two guys on my right and left side tonight. Mike and Rich are absolutely invaluable to me in terms of running this website on a daily basis, and I couldn't be more appreciative of their efforts as well as the entire writing team. It's just a fantastic setup we have going. So thank you very much for reading and following us and remaining loyal to us. And as Mike said, check us out. A lot of good stuff coming down the pipe, including a debut column, a new debut weekly column that'll start on Sunday from our very own Alex, Big Red Diva. We'll start her own weekly thing. So thanks again, and have a good night. All right.
All right. That was good.
All right.
I didn't do Shane any justice with that, but...
Well, your voice is
Well,
pretty... You have a good voice. We all have pretty decent voices. These mics help, too, let me tell you.
Maybe if I would have talked like this.
Yeah, this is nice. Or on whatever.
What do you...
AM radio
Maybe if
station
I would have
Yeah.
if I would have went a little deeper.
You have a voice for AM, my friend.
Suffolk County only.
I have a voice for it. I have a voice for
You have a
Indian
voice
news.
for the channels under, like, beneath
I have a-
87.1.
I have a voice for the NC-17 channels. This has
Before
been
we-
the Dump and Chase podcast.
No, that's NPR hockey stuff. Listen, before we go, what's on the slate for the rest of the week? Who's got post games and any
I don't know.
new articles coming up?
Actually, that's a good. We'll send out an email tomorrow and see who's got, because these are tough games. These are the late games coming up now. So, I mean, the good news is the Saturday game is at night.
Yeah, we'll take. One of us can look
That
at it.
game, the Wednesday game and Thursday games next week are both 10:30, so that's going to be a mess.
I guess.
Once we get through those three, Saturday, next Wednesday, and Thursday, we're back to normal times again. So.
Yeah, well, that's what Reagan King is for. And his
Yeah, why do we have a Midwest correspondent?
Well, we had freaking Joe Powers, who's like a vampire. He,
Yeah,
course,
he
Yeah,
sleeps through his
that
bed and is up all
I miss-
night.
I miss Joe, but
Yeah,
I mean,
same.
yeah.
You know what though? I respect Joe saying that he didn't have the time to properly match what everybody else was giving. I respect that tremendously.
Mhm.
Tremendously.
All right. Well, with that said, tomorrow at 9 o'clock start, and I'll be on the Twitters.
The Twitter machine.
Yeah, Rich, I mean, if you guys are around and you want to crash my date, you can. This was kind of a last minute.
No, we don't want to be a third wheel
no,
there,
man.
Mikey.
What
We don't want to get in the middle of that.
I don't want to be the third or fourth wheel over there.
That's a developing bromance. We don't want to get in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I just-
Guys,
people-
it's a bar. Anybody can go, okay?
Mike. That could be something special. You never
I mean,
know what
like,
that can evolve
so,
into.
Islanders point blank, cherry picking, man, cherry picking. All
You know,
right.
shared benefits down the
Whatever,
road,
man.
life insurance, medical. You just never know what that can evolve into. And hey,
Well, I'll still be manning the Twitter. I'll be in the field, but I'll be manning the Twitter.
all right.
The Twit-
Hey,
what
look,
is
whatever you
the-
got to do, buddy. If Kevin demands more of you,
I will.
then I
Well,
understand.
enjoy your betrayal.
Enjoy-
enjoy the fruits of your betrayal, Michael.
enjoy sleeping with the enemy.
I mean, I don't kiss and tell, so.
Sleeping with the enemy,
What?
part 2, the Island
Yes.
Real Estate story.
Well, anyway, tell Schultz what's up, and all the best for his people.
And anyone
Right.
still, I know there's
Wait,
still
by the way, where exactly are you supposedly going?
Don't
So
know.
we're gonna go by the-
We're live. If you don't want everybody to know, don't say it.
It's
Some
called it's called some bar by the garden.
It's called some bar in some city, in some metro area.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, enjoy. That's going to be a late night. Sheesh.
For anybody still listening, Shane Blackburn will be professionally editing this recording, and he will add in all
Allegedly.
the usual
Allegedly.
sound. Allegedly. He will add in all the necessary sound effects, disclaimers, etc., etc., and that will be up on the Stitcher and iTunes tomorrow if he does his job, which Shane's kind of a 50-50 proposition lately, so just getting him to answer emails has been tough.
Oh, well.
Busy
Well,
boy,
okay.
he's a busy boy.
Well, it's been a pleasure, boys. See ya.
Boys, always a pleasure. Thanks again, as always.
All right.
All right.
Have a good night,
Boys,
guys.
I'll
Have a
talk
good
to you
night, man. All right.
later.